Have you ever worked hard at something and felt like no one noticed? Like you're putting in the effort, showing up every day, trying to improve, yet the world just keeps moving as if your progress doesn't exist. It's frustrating, isn't it? Because deep down, most people believe effort should eventually bring recognition. Work hard, stay disciplined, do the right things, and sooner or later, someone will see it. But what if that belief is actually holding people back? What if the most powerful progress in life happens precisely when nobody is watching? In this story, you'll meet a poor man who spent years feeling invisible. While others chased attention and praise, his work remained hidden in the background of life. No applause, no recognition, no visible success, but what he eventually discovered would completely change the direction of his future. Because the effort the world ignores today might quietly become the success everyone sees tomorrow. And once you understand the principle behind that transformation, you'll never look at your own effort the same way again. Stay with this story until the end, because the lesson this man learned in silence might be the exact insight that changes the way you build your future. Most people begin their journey with excitement, believing success will show up quickly. They imagine progress will be obvious, that others will notice, applaud, and validate their effort. But life doesn't always work that way. In fact, most meaningful progress begins quietly. Days pass, sometimes weeks, and nothing seems to change on the surface. And that's the moment when many people start wondering if their effort even matters. You've probably seen it happen. Maybe you've felt it yourself. Someone starts learning a new skill, working late, trying to improve their life. At first, there's hope, energy, a sense that something big might happen soon. But when no results appear and no one seems to notice, that excitement slowly fades. What once felt like progress now begins to feel like pointless effort. The world has a strange way of rewarding visible results while ignoring invisible work. People celebrate the finish line but rarely pay attention to the miles walked before it. A promotion appears overnight. A successful business suddenly takes off. An athlete becomes famous after years of training no one ever saw. But the quiet hours, the hidden effort, the lonely persistence, those moments remain unseen. And that's where discouragement creeps in. A person looks around and thinks, why does everyone else seem to move forward while I stay stuck? They scroll through success stories, seeing only the highlights. They compare their invisible struggle with someone else's visible victory. And slowly, a dangerous belief begins forming in their mind. The belief that progress only counts if other people see it. If no one praises it, if no one notices it, maybe it isn't real progress at all. So people start chasing recognition instead of growth. They shift their focus from building something meaningful to appearing successful. And without realizing it, they abandon the very process that leads to real change. Here's the quiet truth most people overlook. The most powerful transformations rarely begin with applause. They begin in silence, in small actions repeated day after day. Reading when no one is watching, practicing when no one cares, improving when no one expects it. The foundation of a new life is almost always built where nobody is looking. Think about it for a moment. If you wanted to become stronger, smarter, or more capable, where would that change actually start? Not on a stage, not in front of an audience. It would begin in ordinary moments. Studying after work, practicing a skill, waking earlier than before. Simple choices that seem invisible, but slowly reshape who you become. Yet most people quit before that quiet transformation has time to appear. They mistake silence for failure and invisibility for lack of progress. And because of that misunderstanding, countless dreams fade long before they ever had a chance. But somewhere out there was a man who faced this exact struggle, and the way he responded to it would eventually change everything. Somewhere in a small, crowded corner of the world lived a man most people barely noticed. He wasn't famous, powerful, or particularly impressive at first glance. Just a poor worker moving quietly through long days and tired nights. If you passed him on the street, you probably wouldn't look twice. And honestly, that's exactly how life had always treated him. His mornings began before the city fully woke up. The air still cool, the streets half empty, the sky barely turning gray. He walked to work with steady steps, carrying the weight of responsibility on tired shoulders, bills to pay, problems to solve, a future that felt painfully uncertain. Yet somehow, he kept showing up, day after day, without applause. At work, he blended into the background like a shadow on the wall. Others spoke louder, moved faster, attracted attention without even trying. They were praised, promoted, recognized. Meanwhile, he quietly did his job, careful and consistent. But consistency, as he would soon learn, rarely attracts immediate attention. Sometimes he'd overhear conversations that made his chest tighten just a little. Co-workers celebrating achievements, managers praising someone's performance, laughter, applause, congratulatory handshakes echoing through the room. He would keep working silently, pretending it didn't affect him. But deep down, a question began whispering inside his mind. Was he simply invisible? Or was he simply not good enough? You see, the strange thing about being overlooked is how quietly it affects a person. There's no dramatic moment when discouragement arrives. Instead, it creeps in slowly, like fog rolling into a quiet street at night. A missed opportunity here, a forgotten name there. Little moments that slowly reshape how someone sees themselves. Still, he never stopped trying to do things well. If a task needed attention, he gave it his best effort. If a problem appeared, he stayed a little longer to solve it. Not because anyone demanded it, but because something inside him refused to quit, even when no one seemed to notice. Some evenings he'd walk home beneath dim streetlights, replaying the day in his mind, wondering if he had missed something, some secret everyone else seemed to know. Why did success seem to follow others so easily? Why did recognition always land somewhere else? And most importantly, why did his effort seem to disappear into silence? But what he couldn't see yet, what almost no one around him understood, was that these quiet days were shaping something inside him, something stronger than praise, stronger than recognition. A slow, invisible transformation that would soon be tested in a moment he never expected. And that moment was coming sooner than he imagined. At first, the days just felt ordinary. Wake up, go to work, return home tired, repeat the same routine again tomorrow. Nothing dramatic, nothing disastrous, just a quiet cycle that never seemed to change. Weeks slipped by almost unnoticed, blending into months that looked exactly the same. And somewhere along the way, a heavy question began settling in his mind. Was he moving forward at all? He worked hard, harder than many people around him. If something needed to be finished, he stayed late without complaining. If a task required patience, he handled it carefully, step by step. Yet somehow, none of it seemed to lead anywhere meaningful. Effort went in. Silence came out. Meanwhile, life around him appeared to move at a different speed. Co-workers advanced. Opportunities opened. Praise circulated through the workplace. Names were mentioned. Promotions announced. Congratulations shared. From the outside, it looked like success simply found certain people, and for reasons he couldn't explain, it never seemed to find him. That's when doubt began quietly tapping on the door of his mind. Not loudly, not all at once, just small thoughts appearing at the end of long days. Maybe he wasn't talented enough. Maybe effort alone simply wasn't enough. You see, feeling stuck rarely arrives with a dramatic warning. It builds slowly through repetition. Another ordinary day, another unnoticed effort, another closed door. Eventually, a person begins wondering if they're walking in circles instead of moving forward, and that thought can be more exhausting than hard work itself. Some nights he sat quietly at the small table in his apartment, the room dim, the city humming softly outside the window. He stared at his hands that worked every day without rest, and he wondered if all that effort was slowly disappearing into nothing. It's a question many people secretly carry, because here's the truth most people don't talk about. Working hard without visible progress can feel incredibly lonely. Not physically alone, but emotionally alone in the journey. Like rowing a boat across a foggy lake, unsure if land exists ahead. And the longer the fog lasts, the heavier the oars begin to feel. Still, something inside him refused to completely give up. Even in the quiet frustration, he kept showing up. He kept trying, even while doubting whether it mattered. What he didn't know yet was that life was quietly preparing a moment that would push all that frustration to the surface. Then one day something small happened, yet it felt strangely heavy. It was the kind of moment most people would forget within minutes. But for him, it landed differently, like the final drop in an already full glass. A meeting at work, a few announcements, a round of applause, and once again, someone else's name echoed through the room. He watched as congratulations filled the air, smiles, handshakes, pats on the back, the kind of recognition everyone hopes to feel someday. The person receiving the praise had done well, no doubt about it. Still, a quiet tension tightened in his chest, because he knew something few others did. He had helped make that success possible, not in a dramatic way, not in a way anyone would notice right away, but through small contributions, quiet problem solving, extra hours no one tracked, the kind of effort that supports success from the shadows. And yet, when the moment of recognition arrived, his presence vanished. For a brief second, frustration flared inside him. Not anger exactly, more like a deep, aching exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying effort no one ever acknowledges. He felt the urge to stand up, to say something, to finally demand to be seen, but instead he remained silent, and that silence felt heavier than ever before. Later that evening, the city lights blurred softly against the dark sky. He walked home slower than usual, hands in his pockets, thoughts spinning. The applause from earlier replayed again and again in his mind. Not because he resented the other man, but because he suddenly realized how invisible his own work had become. For the first time, frustration turned into a direct question, a question he could no longer ignore. Was all this quiet effort actually leading somewhere? Or was he simply wasting years of his life unnoticed? When he reached his small apartment, the room felt unusually still. No voices, no applause, no distractions. Just the quiet hum of the world outside the window. And in that silence, something important began shifting inside him. Because moments like this do one of two things. They either convince a person to quit, or they force them to rethink everything about how they move through life. That night, standing alone in that quiet room, he realized a decision had to be made. That night, the silence in the room felt different. Not empty, not peaceful either, just heavy with thought. He sat by the small table, staring at the faint reflection of city lights through the window. The applause from earlier still echoed faintly in his memory, and for the first time, he stopped asking why others were recognized. Instead, he asked a far more important question. What if recognition had never been the real goal? It was a strange thought at first, almost uncomfortable, like turning a key in a door that had never been opened before. For years he had believed effort should eventually bring attention, that if he worked hard enough, someone would finally notice. But suddenly, that belief felt fragile, because the truth was simple. He couldn't control whether people noticed him. He couldn't control promotions, praise, or applause. Those things belonged to circumstances, opinions, timing. But there was one thing he could control completely: the person he chose to become. And that realization landed quietly, but powerfully. What if his effort didn't need witnesses to be valuable? What if the real reward of effort was not recognition, but transformation? Not applause from others, but growth within himself. The idea felt both humbling and strangely freeing. So that night, he made a decision no one else would ever see. He would keep improving, even if no one noticed. He would learn new skills, even if no one praised the effort. He would become better, stronger, wiser, even if the world remained silent. Not for attention, but for the quiet satisfaction of progress. And once that decision settled into his mind, something subtle changed. The pressure to impress others faded. The frustration of being overlooked lost its power. Instead of chasing recognition, he began chasing improvement. Small steps, quiet discipline, consistent effort day after day. Almost like planting seeds in a garden no one else could see. Of course, the path ahead was still uncertain. The world outside had not changed overnight. Opportunities had not suddenly appeared. People had not magically started noticing him. But inside, something important had shifted. Because the moment someone stops chasing attention and starts chasing growth instead, a different kind of journey begins. And sometimes that quiet shift opens the door to a discovery that changes everything about how effort truly works. Many of the stories you hear here aren't just stories. They reflect the invisible weight you may be carrying every day. If you're tired of holding pain, responsibility, and guilt that were never yours, I created an ebook called The Weight of Stones That Are Not Yours and More Too Bonus for you. It's for those who want to let go, set boundaries, and live with more lightness. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. A few days after that quiet decision, something unexpected happened. Not a miracle, not a dramatic opportunity, just a small moment most people would have ignored. While cleaning a storage room at work, he found an old, worn-out book on a dusty shelf. Its pages were yellowed, its cover slightly torn, but something about it caught his attention. During his lunch break, he opened it out of simple curiosity. At first, he expected nothing special, just another forgotten object. But as he flipped through the pages, one sentence made him pause. It said something simple, almost obvious, yet the words carried a strange weight. The work that changes a life is usually the work nobody sees. He read that line again, and then again. It felt as if someone had quietly described his entire struggle in a single sentence. All the unnoticed hours, all the silent effort, all the quiet persistence. For the first time, those invisible moments suddenly felt meaningful, not wasted, but essential. Later that week, he mentioned the line to an older co-worker. The man had worked there for decades, calm, steady, observant. He listened carefully, then smiled in a way that suggested he understood more than he said. After a moment, he leaned back and shared something simple, something that stayed with the young man for years. Most people work only when someone is watching, the old man said quietly. But the people who change their lives work the same way, even when no one is. Those words landed like a quiet revelation. Suddenly, the young man saw his situation differently. Maybe being unnoticed wasn't a disadvantage at all. Maybe it was actually an opportunity. Freedom to improve without pressure. Freedom to grow without distraction. Think about that for a second. If no one is watching you closely, you can practice longer, experiment more, fail privately, learn faster. You can study a new skill after work, read 10 pages of a book every night, wake 30 minutes earlier to build a habit that compounds over time. Invisible effort becomes a laboratory for personal transformation. That night, walking home under the soft glow of streetlights, his thoughts felt lighter, not because life had suddenly changed, but because he now understood something most people miss. The silence around his effort was not proof of failure. It was actually the perfect environment for growth. And once that idea took root in his mind, his daily routine began to change in quiet but powerful ways. Small habits, new disciplines, consistent effort behind the scenes. No audience, no applause, just steady progress. And that's when the real transformation quietly began. Once that idea settled into his mind, his days began to look a little different. Not dramatically different from the outside. People around him barely noticed. He still showed up to work, still moved quietly through his routine. But beneath the surface, a new rhythm had started forming. A rhythm built on intention rather than expectation. He began with something simple, learning a little every day. Nothing extreme, nothing impossible. Just 20 minutes each evening reading about skills related to his work. At first it felt small, almost insignificant. But small efforts repeated daily have a strange power. Then he added another habit. Instead of rushing through tasks, he started studying them. How could they be done faster, better, smarter? If a problem appeared, he didn't just fix it, he tried to understand it. Little by little, his awareness began sharpening. Soon, his evenings changed as well. While others relaxed in front of screens for hours, he chose a different path. Some nights he practiced new skills. Other nights he reviewed what he had learned during the day. Step by step, knowledge started stacking like bricks in a quiet foundation. One powerful lesson guided his approach. Improvement didn't require huge bursts of effort. It required consistency. 30 minutes of focused learning each day. One skill improved each week. One problem understood more deeply than before. Anyone watching from the outside would see nothing unusual. Just a quiet worker going about his routine. No announcements, no big changes, no dramatic success stories. But inside, his abilities were slowly evolving, like muscles growing stronger through steady training. And the interesting thing about hidden effort is this: it compounds. A new skill makes the next skill easier to learn. Better discipline makes focus more natural. Understanding one problem reveals patterns in many others. What begins as small effort eventually creates uncommon capability. Weeks turned into months. The work remained quiet, steady, almost invisible. But something inside him was becoming sharper, stronger, more capable. And although the world had not noticed yet, that silent preparation was getting closer to its first real test. At the beginning, the new routine felt exciting. There was something energizing about choosing growth instead of frustration. Each evening of study, each small improvement felt like a quiet step forward. For a while, motivation carried him easily through the process. But as anyone who has tried to change their life knows, motivation doesn't stay forever. After a few weeks, the real challenge began to appear. The alarm clock felt heavier in the mornings. Reading after long work days suddenly required real effort. Some nights his mind was tired, his body exhausted, and the old habits quietly started whispering again. You've worked hard enough today. Skipping one day won't matter. Why keep pushing if no one even sees the effort? Those thoughts were subtle but persistent, not loud enough to cause a dramatic collapse, just enough to slowly weaken discipline if he allowed them to. And more than once he sat there at night, staring at the book on the table, wondering if the effort was truly worth it. Because working without visible results tests something deeper than motivation. It tests patience. There were evenings when progress felt almost imaginary. He would read, practice, think, and repeat the process again the next day. Yet nothing around him seemed different. No praise, no recognition, no opportunity suddenly appearing. Just quiet work disappearing into quiet days. And that's where most people give up. They mistake slow progress for no progress. They assume effort must produce quick rewards to be valuable. But growth rarely follows the schedule we expect. Sometimes it works underground for a long time, before anything becomes visible on the surface. Still, he reminded himself of the principle he had discovered. The most important work happens where no one is looking. So he kept going, some nights with full focus, other nights with just enough discipline to continue. Even when doubt showed up, he refused to completely stop. Because he understood something most people overlook. Consistency beats intensity over time. A single hour of learning repeated hundreds of times will always outperform a few bursts of motivation. And although he couldn't see it yet, those quiet hours were slowly building something powerful inside him. Something that would soon begin revealing itself in unexpected ways. At first, the changes were so small they were almost impossible to notice. A task that once confused him suddenly felt easier to solve. A problem that used to take an hour now took 20 minutes. Little improvements, quiet victories that no one else paid attention to. But inside, something steady was beginning to grow. The strange thing about progress is how quietly it arrives. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or applause. Instead, it appears in subtle moments. A faster decision, a sharper observation, a solution that comes to mind before anyone else has even noticed the problem. The kind of growth that sneaks up on a person. One afternoon, something small happened at work. A technical issue appeared that had stalled the team before. People gathered around, discussing possible solutions. For a moment he simply listened, thinking carefully. Then an idea surfaced, something he had learned weeks earlier. He shared the suggestion calmly, almost unsure if it mattered. The room fell quiet for a second as people considered it. Someone tried the solution, and just like that, the problem was resolved. Not dramatically, just efficiently. A few co-workers glanced at him with mild surprise. Nothing extraordinary, just a quiet acknowledgement. But for him, that moment meant something deeper. It was the first time his hidden preparation had surfaced in real life. Proof that the silent effort was beginning to shape reality. Moments like that began appearing more often. A faster solution here, a clearer explanation there. Gradually, people started asking for his opinion. Not because he demanded attention, but because his competence had quietly grown. And here's the fascinating part about slow progress. At first, no one notices it. Then a few people notice it occasionally. Eventually, it becomes difficult to ignore. But by that point, the foundation has already been built. Think about how this applies to anyone watching this story. Learning one skill each month, improving one habit each week, reading 10 pages a day for an entire year. Those small efforts quietly reshape a person's capabilities. Weeks turned into months, and months into a new rhythm of confidence. Not arrogance, not pride, just quiet certainty. He began trusting his own preparation, the hours of study, the discipline, the persistence. And without realizing it, something interesting was about to happen. Because eventually, when preparation and opportunity cross paths, the invisible effort that once lived in silence suddenly steps into the light. And that moment was closer than he imagined. One ordinary morning, the office buzzed with unusual tension. A complicated project had suddenly hit a wall, and deadlines were closing in fast. Managers moved quickly between desks, voices low but urgent. Everyone knew the pressure was rising. And this time the problem wasn't simple. The team gathered around charts, reports, and unfinished solutions. Ideas were thrown across the room, but none seemed to solve the real issue. Minutes turned into hours, and frustration began creeping into every conversation. It was the kind of moment that reveals who truly understands the work, and quietly, he listened from the edge of the room, While others debated loudly, he studied the details carefully. His mind moved through everything he had learned over the past months. Concepts from books, lessons from mistakes, patterns he had noticed during late nights of study. Slowly, the pieces began forming a clear picture in his mind. A solution started taking shape. At first he hesitated. After all, he wasn't the loudest voice in the room. He wasn't the most recognized person on the team. But then he remembered something important. Silent preparation means nothing if you never use it. So he stepped forward and calmly shared his idea. The room paused for a moment. A few people exchanged curious looks. Someone asked a quick question. Another person examined the logic behind the suggestion. Then the team decided to test it. And suddenly, the entire situation began to change. The solution worked, not perfectly at first, but clearly enough to shift the direction of the project. The team adjusted a few details, refined the approach, and the problem that had stalled everyone began to move forward. Conversations shifted from frustration to momentum, and slowly, attention turned toward the quiet man who had offered the idea. For the first time, recognition didn't feel forced or requested. It arrived naturally, as a response to capability. People asked how he had seen the solution so clearly. Managers nodded with quiet approval. Co-workers who once barely noticed him now looked at him differently, not with surprise alone, but with respect. But the most interesting change didn't happen around him. It happened inside him. Because in that moment, he realized something powerful. The recognition itself wasn't the real reward. The real reward was the person he had become through months of silent effort. The discipline, the knowledge, the confidence built in invisible hours. And that first visible result was only the beginning. After that day, something subtle began changing in the way people saw him. Not overnight fame, not dramatic celebration, just a quiet shift in perception. Co-workers who once overlooked him now asked for his thoughts during discussions. Managers began trusting him with more complex responsibilities. And little by little, doors that once seemed closed started opening. At first, the changes felt almost surreal to him. The same hallways, the same desks, the same daily routine. Yet somehow, the atmosphere around him had transformed. People listened when he spoke. His ideas carried weight. But the truth was simple. The transformation hadn't started when others noticed him. It had started months earlier, in the silent hours no one ever saw, the evenings of study, the discipline to keep going, the patience through doubt. Those invisible moments had quietly reshaped his capabilities. Now, the world was simply catching up. New opportunities began appearing one after another. Projects that required deeper thinking, roles that demanded stronger leadership, and instead of feeling intimidated, he felt prepared. Because every step forward rested on a foundation he had carefully built, a foundation of quiet effort. Over time, his life slowly moved in a direction he once thought impossible. Financial stability replaced constant uncertainty. Confidence replaced quiet self-doubt. The man who once felt invisible now carried a presence people respected, not because he demanded attention, but because he had earned it. Yet what mattered most was not the success itself. It was the understanding he carried with him. He knew the applause others were now hearing was actually the echo of work done long before anyone was watching. The victories people celebrated today had been planted months earlier in silent effort, and that realization changed how he approached every new challenge. Whenever a new opportunity appeared, he didn't chase recognition. He returned to the same principle that transformed his life: quiet preparation, consistent discipline, hidden effort. The process that had quietly rebuilt his future once before. And the remarkable thing about this approach is that it continues working long after the first success appears. Because the moment someone truly understands how powerful silent effort can be, they begin seeing life differently. And that's the lesson this story was always leading toward. If you look closely at this story, the turning point wasn't luck. It wasn't a sudden opportunity falling from the sky. And it definitely wasn't recognition from others. The real turning point happened the moment he stopped working for applause and started working for growth instead. That shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Most people measure progress by what others can see. More money, more attention, more visible results. But real transformation usually begins long before any of that appears. It begins in quiet moments that rarely get noticed. Think about the skills people admire most. A great speaker, a brilliant entrepreneur, A confident leader. From the outside, their success looks effortless, but behind every visible achievement lies years of preparation, thousands of small actions repeated in silence. And here's the truth many people overlook. Silence is not the enemy of progress. It is the environment where progress grows strongest. When no one is watching, you are free to improve without pressure. You can learn slowly, make mistakes privately, experiment without judgment. That quiet space becomes the workshop where your future is built, but only if you choose to use it. So imagine applying this principle in your own life. What would happen if you spent just 30 minutes each day improving a skill, reading 10 pages of a good book every night, practicing communication, learning a new tool, building a new habit? Small actions, simple enough to repeat consistently. Most people ignore those small efforts because they don't look impressive. But those are exactly the actions that quietly reshape a person's destiny. Month by month, skill by skill, habit by habit, invisible progress slowly turns into visible capability. And one day the results finally appear. That's the moment the world calls success. But by then, you already know the truth. Success wasn't built in the spotlight. It was built in the silence long before anyone noticed. Just like the man in this story discovered. And once you understand that principle, you start seeing every quiet moment differently. Every unnoticed effort becomes an investment in the person you are becoming. And the work you do today, even if no one sees it, might be shaping the life you will one day live.